Let me explain what a cover-up in the age of social media looks like. Men in black suits are not on display, with non-disclosure agreements and briefcases at your front door. It doesn't appear to be very dramatic. Scenario from a political thriller in which someone receives a call at midnight and is told to remain silent. A cover-up in 2026 would be a single Instagram post that ignites the entire internet, followed 10 hours later by the head coach's own press conference was entirely at odds with an all-caps correction on Twitter that no one requested. And it drops so quickly and is so polished that half of the internet asks right away who made her write it. My name is Dre Fiver. This is Legacy Heat Hoops, and we're going to reveal Sophie Cunningham's Instagram post and her extremely dubious retractions, the enormous inconsistency that no one in the Indiana Fever Association wishes to discuss, as well as the urgent topic that is more pressing than ever: did the Fever front office get to Sophie? From my vantage point, the entire situation has simply turned into damage control. Furthermore, true damage control only takes place when there is significant harm that needs to be concealed. First, let's set the scenario. Because before we analyze the explosion, you must comprehend the spark if you missed the initial drama. The Indiana Fever found themselves in a difficult situation. They needed a miracle badly after blowing a 17-point advantage. Their last item, we'll talk about who actually created the play in a moment because that response is becoming disorganized. Sophie Cunningham then quickly perused the incoming. She disregarded the main. Caitlin Clark was standing wide open on the wing when he whipped a pass to her. Clark drains the three-pointer. Fever wins. The game is ended, and everyone leaves for home. However, the internet did what it does once fans started using their phones. Best, analyzing each and every perspective, until the true picture began to emerge. The video clips were widely popular. When the breakdowns erupted, everyone began to wonder if Sophie and Clark or Kelsey Mitchell was the real target. Simply went completely insane, and if Coach Stephanie White's indifferent response to the game-winning stress. It quickly spread to all areas. And Sophie Cunningham published a post amid all of that chaos. On Instagram. That one upload completely changed the story. I'll explain what she posted in detail because the specifics are essential. She posted some typical game day pictures along with a lovely caption that was just the right amount of festive post you would anticipate following a significant victory. However, the pin was already buried at the extreme end like a live grenade. Pull was a meme. Before Sophie stamped, this particular meme was already circulating on the internet. She essentially stated, "We did not follow the plan," using her own enormous platform. Completely worthwhile, we may have made do. Unfortunately, the worst part is that you actually carried out the plan. Look, I want to be totally honest. Sophie Cunningham most likely did not produce such image on her own. It's highly likely that it was already doing the rounds on the internet and she just chose to republish it. It as a component of her triumphant carousel. However, this is what really counts. This is the information that fully eliminates any tenable deniability. Being aware of the amount of controversy already around that, Sophie still decided to post that meme in the final play. She co-signed the entire rumor by stamping it. She came across posts stating that we didn't adhere to the plan. We essentially decided, yeah, I am putting my name on that, after improvising. It's not a coincidence. That is not an easy mistake. That's a professional athlete speaking to the public about something she can't say aloud. Furthermore, Sophie Cunningham, in my opinion, knew exactly what she was doing. She is not gullible. She has a long history in this league, sufficient to understand how social media functions, how quickly content spreads, and how one post can control the entire cycle of news. She posted it despite having seen the meme, understood the joke, and understood its implications. That was not an error. That was a conscious decision. And such actions during a contentious dispute are nearly always well. Additionally, Caitlin Clark engaged with the post. Take a moment to consider that. The star of the franchise in the middle of everything. The player whose shot won the game and whose relationship with her coach has been closely examined throughout the entire year. She responded to Sophie's post right away, demonstrating that this wasn't only Sophie acting out while Clark made an effort to avoid the limelight on the court. They stood together. Additionally, based on their social media activity, their off-court energy is going in the same direction. This is where things really start to get strange. At this point, the typical basketball drama turns into something much more odd. Since Sophie posted it around 10 hours later, not 10 minutes or 2 hours, there was plenty of time for the message to accumulate millions of views on many platforms. More than enough time for numerous sports accounts and creators. Should cut it, examine it, and add it to the pile of proof that this last play wasn't what it seemed. Sophie Cunningham made a correction on Twitter. Fans were overanalyzing, she wrote in all caps, stating their head coach's exact play was accomplished perfectly, written entirely in capital letters. This was not a composed, businesslike statement intended to gently correct the record. It was just yelling. It is the digital version of someone shaking you and holding your shoulders, which is extremely suspicious. Selection for a post that purports to be only addressing a straightforward mistake. Just my viewpoint. Normal individuals don't post in all caps for 10 hours if they believe they unintentionally caused a misunderstanding. Later on, you simply leave a brief message and move on if you believe your meme is being exaggerated. The post's exact wording, the strange timing, and the yelling in all caps. To tidy up a mess. That person is acting with a sense of urgency that isn't driven by self-interest. When a player receives a phone call, text, or an extremely direct chat, that is their frenetic energy, instructing her to end the story before it got out of control. Now, I won't sit here and assert categorically that Lynn Dunn, named Sophie Cunningham, I won't claim that someone was assigned to knock on her door by the front desk. I'm not aware of that. Additionally, I will never give unverified rumors as objective truths, but I will describe how this appears to everyone who is watching because it's obvious that someone put a lot of pressure on the issue. It appears that a senior member of the company made the decision that Sophie, they had to put out the enormous fire at Cunningham's post right away. And the outcome was a screaming. A full 10 hours after her initial post, X made a correction and explicitly contradicted, nearly verbatim, the news conference remark made by head coach Stephanie White following the game. That is the precise information that no one wants to discuss the Indiana Fever organization, because this obvious inconsistency is at the core of the drama. According to Sophie Cunningham, their head coach's exact play was completed flawlessly. However, Stephanie White made it clear to reporters at the post-game podium that Austin drew up that play. Everyone in the room could hear her give credit to her assistant coach, Austin Kelly, live on camera. As a result, there are now two completely different accounts of who actually created the play that won the game. The assistant is indicated by the head coach. T was the head coach, according to the player's post. These two assertions cannot be concurrently true. Someone is either lying or was told to fabricate an out-of-control narrative. It's true that Sophie authored our coach without specifically mentioning Stephanie White. She omitted the name. And that particular information is being used by some supporters as leeway, attempting to give her some leeway. Perhaps when she wrote our coach, she was referring to Austin Kelly. Perhaps the loud correction was simply poor wording rather than a true contradiction of Stephanie White's assertion. It's a generous theory, but let's be honest. The typical fan thinks of the head coach when they read that our coach wrote the play. Not the assistant, but the franchise's face in the middle of the press conference. Sophie wished to keep things clear. She could have been quite explicit. Like White, she might have just given credit to Austin Kelly. Anything. Instead, she wrote our coach, indicating that she was either explicitly defying her head coach or she was purposefully being ambiguous to appease the person who requested the cleanup while maintaining sufficient plausible deniability to prevent